Welcome to Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples, a channel of conversation and board games.
Hey, my name is Brent here on Cloudy with a Chance of Meeples. Here on the channel, we are going to be looking at a pretty big game, an adventure game, a story-driven game known as Familiar Tales. This is a pretty big box, as you can see, and in this game, you're going to be deck building and going through a book, a location book with almost 80 pages in it, and you will be doing this big, long narrative, kind of like a dungeon crawl. And if you know me and follow the channel, you know that dungeon crawls are not my thing. Did this game change that? Let's find out. First, cue the thunder. So the radar overview for Familiar Tales, a story crafting game, looks something like this. This is going to be kind of like a very, very loose overview as to how this game is played. It's a storybook game in which you'll be using this book throughout the game with different scenarios that you'll be going to. Let me put those back there. And each of the stories will have, or each scenario, I guess, will have a starting setup and win condition and different bad guys that you'll come in contact with. And like I said, this is going to be just a loose overview. Pretty much the whole game is kind of ran through this online app. So all the information is in the rule book, which I will say is, for the most part, well written. I had a few things, but there is a thing in the app where it has like rules glossary. So there's quite a bit in here. You can edit the turn order and whatnot. This has all sorts of background noise, sound, music, I should say. Some options. Let's see if we can hear how the music goes. Going. So I don't know if you can hear this or not, but it's got some nice, like, adventuresome background music. Depending on where you're at and what's happening, it'll be different, but I'm just going to mute that for a bit. But this is a deck building game. You're going to have like a training row. These cards you can build with power. You can buy, or you can forage or get different items, and then you can use those to then buy different upgrades. So let's just see this this battle harness costs you 1 crystal and 1 cloth, and then it'll give you 1 for defending. And if you ever play a card with a fox, you can move the danger down, which I'll get to momentarily. You also have, a little player card for each of the players. Has a little bit of what special ability they can do, and then a little bit of a backstory to them. Their starting decks, which I won't show you all these cards because I have kind of all the eras mixed in. These 2 cards are actually from the 3rd era. You're going to be playing this game over 3 different eras. You're going to have a campaign journal where you'll be, crossing things off, writing things on, going through this map, era 1, era 2, and then there's era 3. Again, I don't want to show you too many things that you can write because I don't want to spoil anything. This is a lot of story. It's kind of 50% story, 50% game. The whole concept is you're protecting this little baby. She starts as a baby, and then this little baby grows up to, a young child, and then in era 3, she's just a young lady. And you're going to be protecting her and coming up with different bad guys. You'll go through these different pages. Anytime you get to, something that has a number with a book, you'll use this app then, and then you'll type that in. So that would be 102. You hit go, and then you can either read it yourself or it has voice acting and whatnot. So let's see.
I hear something.
Blaze stood alert, her ears held high.
Humans on the road, armed and armored.
Ribbert nodded and looked around. Take cover, everyone. Let's see what we have. 2 thugs came into view. Sprint.
So, you know what? Again, you can have it read to you, or you can read it yourself. So you're going to be using this kind of like a companion app all the time. And so it works fairly well. There's sometimes the voice acting is a little bit louder. Different voices are like considerably louder. Sometimes I found that the music will kind of cut in or start playing over the voice acting, but I don't know if any updates will ever happen to that, but we'll see. But like I said, you're going to be, protecting the baby, and you'll be, doing different actions depending on how discontent the baby is. You'll have to soothe her or feed her or clean her. or if it gets too high, you'll have to start a fire and warm her up. On your turn, you will be taking your cards, and you can either use it for movement in the bottom left corner. You'll be moving around. You can attack if you have a character that can attack from in the same space, which would be Chalk as well as Blaze the Fox. Or if you're Flicker or Gribbert, you'll be using ranged attacks. You'll be using the blue icons for defending yourself. You'll be using the yellow insight icons to do skill tests. You also, if you want to get these mushrooms, you do a skill test play equivalent of, in this case, 3 yellow insight. Because on this page, to forage for items, you need 3 or higher. You roll this chance die +2, so then I would have passed that. I would have been able to collect a mushroom. Then you cover that up saying you can't get it, and then you use those items to build different cards. So this Scone of Heroes costs 1 food and a mushroom, and this will help you pass the skill test. So you're going to be going through this story. You'll be upgrading. You'll be banishing cards. There's going to be cards at the end which you'll just get rid of altogether in the game. You'll go through the different eras, and then it'll end at the end. I'm not going to say anything further. If you ever get too much misfortune, that kind of changes the story and how different characters interact. If you don't deal with this discontentment of the baby enough, she will get angry, and that'll make more misfortune and alert more bad guys and things like that. And this is kind of just like a loose overview as to how this game plays. It is deck building, so when you get new cards, so when you get this Reckless card, it says you may banish 1 card from your hand or discard pile. So then, one of these weaker cards, you can then just get rid of out of the game, and this will add to your deck. So you'll slowly be getting better and better cards. You might also be getting Bond and Storycraft cards, which will, progress the story with Millie, the child, or also gain you different equipment or different things. I'm not going to spoil anything, as mentioned, but that in a nutshell is how you play Familiar Tales. Like I said, this is a very basic overview. The rules, as mentioned, are fairly well written. I had a few questions, but I figured them out. This has the glossary, so that's nice. It's got the phases of your turn, shows you all the actions that you are able to do and whatnot, and different iconography. So overall, there you go. That is the radar overview as to how to play Familiar Tales. Let's move on over now and check out the final forecast. So the final forecast for Familiar Tales, a pretty big campaign game that has a pretty big narrative. You got that location book, almost 80 pages, so there's quite a bit. I will say that this campaign was about 30 to 32 hours for my son and I. We put a lot of time into this, and he enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed it. Let's talk about production. The production value, the production overall, it's fantastic. Okay, so you have all the miniatures, which are pretty sweet. That chalk miniature, let's see if I can pull it out here. That chalk miniature specifically is uber cool. This thing looks so sweet. I hope it's focusing there, but you know what, this thing is amazing. The production in the app I thought was really well done. A few things on that momentarily, but it has voice acting, professional voice acting. It's got sound effects. It's got background music. It really brings you in. And so the production value of this is quite high. It's got a very immersive story where you're protecting this baby, and then in era 2 she's she's elementary age, so she's a young girl, and just what she does and how she interacts with people is very much like a child. And then as you move into era 3, she's grown up a little bit more, and it just really flows in this overarching story until the final battle, whether it be she's not good or she is fully on your side, however it plays out. But the big story. I feel that this, even if you're failing, it's still redemptive. So there's some times where you may feel that you're getting attacked, and your misfortune is just going out of control. For sure, one, maybe two times for us, we were like, we can't defend these guys fast enough. Like, we're just getting beaten up, and our misfortune just went totally out of control. But if that happens to you, don't give up and don't be like, let's redo that scenario, because it has a redemptive story whichever way you go. You're going to go from point A to point B, but depending on which paths you take along that will reflect on how the story goes. Of course, there are times where the app, you'll punch in a certain number and you'll be hearing the story or reading it, whichever you prefer, and it'll say, is this written in your campaign journal? And if it is, then something happens. If it's not, something else happens. And there are multiple times in this campaign where it said, is blank written in your journal? And I look at my son and we're like, nope, that wasn't in the journal. So it's really cool that even more stuff happened, it could have happened, that we didn't see because of different things that we chose or different events that happened. So I thought that was really, really, really fascinating and really, really cool. The deck building is pretty light in this game. You're going to be gaining power and you'll be upgrading your decks, which is all right, but this is majority like a story game. The deck building isn't the main focus. I like it that there's tons of different things that you can craft, and you can, get different items and different weapons for each of the familiars, and specific weapons will help others more than, will help some of the familiars more than others. So that was really cool. Overall, I thought it was pretty well put together. Rules, there was some vagueness in it. It does have that glossary on the app. It will answer a lot of questions. We still had some situations like, I don't know if that's supposed to happen or this is supposed to happen or what the case is, but we just played it what felt natural or what felt good or normal for us. But that would be like the pros. If you're looking for, a long campaign, like 30 plus hours, and if you want to do something with your kids, with like you're a more experienced player and your kids are less experienced, like this is something you could do together. On the contrary, when I say doing this with kids, it says 8+ on the box. I felt the story got pretty dark for me personally. Me as a dad, my son, he's 10. He's a little sensitive in things. This is 8+, and it got a little bit dark, specifically because we failed a lot earlier in the game, and so our misfortune was high. So then, Millie started turning on the evil side, like going down that path. And it just got a little bit dark. So just word of caution, if you're wondering, can I do this with my 8-year-old? Maybe. Your 8-year-old, I don't. But to me, it was a little dark. It reminded me actually, kind of the ending of the story, reminded me of Hellboy, the original Hellboy movie, and just what Hellboy kind of gave into his evil side. Like, I don't want to spoil too much, but to me, that's what it reminded me of, a little bit of Hellboy. So take it for what it is. I said production was great. The dials, maybe not. You put them in the box, and sometimes they like rotate a little bit, and you're like, I have no clue, or I can't remember how much health I had or how much power I have. Especially if you're throwing it on the shelf and coming back to it a few days or a few weeks or months later. That might be a problem, but just take it for what it is. But overall, I thought it was fun. I enjoyed my time with my son. 30+ hours of doing this and sitting there like, what do you think we should do? And just giving him kind of free reign. Should we do this or do that? And I think the majority of the times, I didn't even say, I think we should do this. I just let him choose. I did, say, if we do this, this could happen maybe. Or if we do this, this could happen maybe. Because, of course, I didn't know. But I gave him the chance to call the shots. And he was like, often like, what do you think, Dad? And I was like, you make the decision. And that was really fun for me as a dad to engage in this story with my son. And he loved this. He liked it a lot more than I did. But overall, I think it's solid. I think it's a solid campaign game if this is what you're looking for. I said at the top of the video, I tried Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion because it was, you know, more stripped down than Gloomhaven, and it's still dungeon crawl, but it's not full Gloomhaven. I didn't like that. This is kind of a dungeon crawl, but I could handle it a lot more than I could Gloomhaven. But I can handle it a lot more because it's more story and like less upkeep on like, oh, is that guy injured? Oh, this guy is poisoned. I gotta remember this. There is some of that in this, but there's considerably less than in some other bigger campaigns. So overall, I'm gonna give it a 75% chance of meeples. If you're looking for a big cooperative narrative game, whether you are playing with light gamers and you want a light game aspect and deck building aspect, or you want to do it with kids, then Familiar Tales might be it for you. You'll have to decide. 75% chance meeples for Familiar Tales. There you have it. Check us out on Facebook, Cloudy the Chance Meeples. Till next time, remember, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember to grab your umbrella because the forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.